Did you know that the largest bread bakery in the world uses over 500 tons of flour daily? Join me as we explore how they make it happen. Imagine fields of golden wheat, stretching as far as the eye can see. This is where our journey begins. Each grain of wheat is harvested, cleaned, and milled to create flour, the heart of every loaf of bread. It's incredible to think that this flour, in its raw, natural state, will soon be part of a process so intricate and immense it could only happen in a factory the size of a small city. This flour, so delicate and powdery, starts its transformation here, in one of the most advanced and massive bread production lines ever built. Our hero in this story is a single loaf of bread, which will make its way from simple flour to a delicious, golden brown masterpiece. From the very beginning, our loaf is part of something bigger. Picture this: more than 20,000 loaves are produced here every hour, enough to feed a medium-sized town daily. And it all begins with a simple mixing process that's anything but simple. In the mixing room, massive stainless steel mixers line up in rows, each towering as high as a two-story building. These mixers can hold up to 3,000 pounds of ingredients at once. The flour, precisely measured to avoid any deviation in the recipe, pours in from overhead silos. Then, an automated arm reaches down to add water at exactly 68 degrees, ensuring the dough has the right texture. Salt, yeast, and sometimes a touch of sugar are added to the mix. The yeast activates, creating that magical fermentation process that will give the bread its airy structure. The mixer blades spin with intense speed, kneading the dough into a smooth, elastic form in a matter of minutes. The dough emerges in thick, sticky masses, ready for the next step. But it's not quite bread yet, it's just beginning. At this stage, it's pumped out of the mixer and travels along conveyor belts that stretch for miles within the factory. The belts are lined with dustings of flour to prevent sticking, and as our dough moves along, it meets other streams of dough from nearby mixers. This creates a seamless river of dough that flows through the facility, all at the precise speed needed to keep everything synchronized. This factory has been engineered to maintain a flow so efficient that there's almost no waste. In fact, if any dough falls out of line, there are sensors that will immediately detect and reroute it back into the system. Now, the dough heads into the dividing room. Here, machines with laser precision slice it into perfect portions, each one calibrated down to the gram. To put it into perspective, these machines can handle enough dough per hour to produce over 60,000 loaves. Each portion is cut and shaped in a process called rounding, where the dough is spun on small turntables until it forms a smooth, compact ball. These dough balls are warm, soft, and elastic, a sensory experience that would be delightful to touch, though here everything is completely automated and pristine. Next, it's time for proofing, a crucial stage where the dough rises. The dough balls are sent to a gigantic, climate-controlled chamber known as the proofer. This room is kept at a constant 110 degrees with 85% humidity, perfect conditions for the yeast to thrive. Here, the dough balls sit in silence, expanding and growing. In just 45 minutes, each one doubles in size, transforming from a dense ball of dough to a light, airy loaf. The sight inside this room is surreal. Racks upon racks of dough balls, all rising in unison. It's like watching hundreds of thousands of tiny transformations happening simultaneously. Once proofed, the dough is transferred to shaping machines. These machines are designed to give each loaf its final shape. Some dough is molded into traditional loaf shapes, while others are braided, twisted, or even filled with various ingredients, depending on the bread variety. The machinery here is fascinating, with mechanical arms and rollers that handle each dough piece with a surprising level of delicacy. Each loaf is shaped within seconds, but the quality of each loaf remains consistent, a testament to the precision engineering of this factory. Now, our loaf heads into the most intense part of its journey, the oven. The oven in this factory is a marvel of industrial engineering. Stretching over 100 feet in length, it uses a combination of radiant heat and convection to bake thousands of loaves at once. The temperature inside reaches up to 500 degrees Celsius, enough to instantly sear the outer layer of dough, creating that iconic crust. The loaves move slowly through the oven on a conveyor belt, allowing them to bake evenly. The smell here is intoxicating. A warm, rich aroma of baking bread that fills every corner of the facility. The crust begins to form, golden and crisp, while the inside remains soft and fluffy. Each loaf spends about 20 minutes in this oven, just enough time to achieve the perfect bake. As the bread exits the oven, it heads down the cooling line. Here, industrial fans blow a gentle breeze over the loaves, gradually bringing down their temperature to prevent condensation. This step might seem simple, but it's essential to keeping the bread fresh. If the bread cools too quickly, the crust could crack or the texture could be compromised. The cooling line stretches for almost half a mile, giving each loaf ample time to cool evenly. From here, it's time for quality control. At every stage, from mixing to cooling, there are sensors and cameras that check each loaf for consistency. But here, human inspectors also play a critical role. Standing alongside the conveyor belts, workers inspect random loaves, looking for any imperfections. They check the crust color, shape, and texture to make sure every loaf meets the bakery's high standards. It's a meticulous process. Any loaf that doesn't pass the test is sent back to be reprocessed or discarded. Finally, our loaf arrives at the packaging line. The packaging area is a whirl of activity, with machines moving at lightning speed. Each loaf is sliced with razors so sharp that they create perfectly even cuts without damaging the bread's soft interior. The loaves are then wrapped in clear, breathable packaging that allows them to stay fresh longer. This bakery produces more than 1 million loaves each day, and each one is packaged within seconds of passing quality control. It's an astonishingly fast and efficient process. In just a few minutes, our loaf has gone from freshly baked to ready for delivery. The packaged loaves are then sorted and stacked on pallets by robotic arms. These robots are programmed to organize thousands of loaves at a time, arranging them in a way that maximizes space and stability for transport. Once stacked, the pallets are loaded onto trucks that distribute the bread to grocery stores, restaurants, and markets across the country. This factory operates around the clock, so every day, hundreds of trucks leave with fresh bread, reaching customers just hours after baking. Our loaf, once just a handful of flour, salt, and yeast, has completed an incredible journey. From the mixer to the oven, through a symphony of machines and human expertise, it's become part of a larger system that feeds millions. This is the life cycle of bread in the world's largest bakery, where innovation, precision, and dedication come together to produce something so simple yet so essential.